Welcome to MacGyver's Workshop, where you never know what we're going to be working on next. If you're not too careful, you just might learn something.
Hi there, and welcome to MacGyver's Workshop, where you never know what we're going to be working on next, and if you're not too careful, you just might learn something. Today, this is going to be part 2 on our Corvette project that we're working on here. In the first part, we got the intake manifold off because it had an oil leak. And it was leaking out of the front and the back of the intake where they RTV them. So today we're going to go ahead and we'll be doing a lot of cleaning, but we're also going to go ahead and take down on the front of the motor, get the water pump off and get that out of the way. And then that way it'll help us get everything clean first. And then once everything's nice and tidy clean, then we'll go back together with it. Now I've actually got the special tool for taking these, I call them Briggs and Stratton hose clamps off, because boy, they'll put a hurting on you if they snap loose. Of course, get that one. Let's get that one. And we'll get this one. I mean, this really makes this a whole lot easier, these things to deal with. We're gonna have to break that bad boy loose a bit. There we go. Yeah, I think we're going to trade this one out for a worm drive. And we're going to make a little bit of a mess here, but we can't help that. And we'll take it off the other side, get that completely out of our way. Get these stubborn hoses off. You just kind of work your way around to kind of pry it loose and where it's stuck to the metal. And then you'll be able to get it loose and get it on out of there. There we go. Yeah, looks like there's one more I missed. How about that? Let's get that. Looks like, let's get this wire out of our way here. And again, you always want to be very gentle with these connectors, because they'll get brittle over time. Especially these coil wires here. The connector will definitely get brittle and break on you if you're not careful. Then you got you a little ground wire right there. We don't want to forget that. That'll be important. Reckon we'll take our OptiSpark cable out of there. Get that out of our hair. Go. That's just a jumper cable there. Goes up to the other module. Then once we get that ground wire off of there, we'll be out of the way. I can get our harness out of there. I'm gonna say that's a 13. Maybe? No. 14 or 9/16 one. Amazes me that this is in 1994 that so many of the fasteners, it's a mix of standard and metric. I'm going ahead and getting this wiring harness out of our way, because we're going to be cleaning all along the inside of the heads, and valve covers, and valve covers will eventually be coming off. So we're going to change those gaskets. Oh yeah. Be careful of the crinkly sound of brittleness here. Keep that up there out of the way. Yeah, there we go. We're gonna make a bit of a mess. Yeah, so much for draining all the coolant, huh? We will go ahead and get a serpentine belt off here, since we're gonna need to take this alternator off when we do our valve cover gasket on this side. You want to be careful when you're doing this tensioner here with your wrench. You don't want to get near this sensor. You don't want to bust it. That tensioner is a little bit hard to see down there, but now at this point we should be able to pull our water pump off. guessing that should be a 14 or 15 maybe. Let's see. Yeah, 14. All right, now let's go get our air ratchet. Make life a little easier. I say air ratchet. I mean, I've been using air ratchets for years, and it's hard to get used to the battery powered stuff. Yeah. Leak out a little more coolant there, huh? Now you'll notice these bolts have sealant on them, so we're going to want to replace that when we go back together with it. So you're going to have 4 long bolts going in where your typical small block Chevy water pump bolts would go, but then you've also got 2 extra short ones, one on the outside on each side. It might need you a small extension and a deep socket to get to that other one. You got to remember, you got a shaft coming out the front of the timing cover going into the back of this pump that drives it, or the shaft coming out of the pump, one or the other. So you just want to break your gasket loose and then very gently smidge your way out here with this pump until you're clear of that. And you want to be careful because your coil wire goes right down here as well. So you kind of want to finagle very gently to get this out. Let's get that up out of there. There we go. A slow, gentle finagle and she'll come out of there. And in a minute, when we get over there, I'll show you where that water pump was leaking out of its little weep hole. And normally what happens is they'll leak out of that weep hole at a pretty good clip and get down here and get into your OptiSpark and mess it up. But fortunately, he caught his just in time. So that's a good thing. Kind of had to make a decision here. Got the water pump off. The water pump was definitely leaking out of the weep hole. I'll take a still here so you can see it. And then the front of this motor is just too nasty. I'm gonna have to go ahead and pull this OptiSpark distributor off of here, get that out of the way, because I'm not gonna be able to clean that up without risking, you know, getting any kind of penetrant or whatever in the, or cleaner into the distributor. So we'll go ahead and do this upright and just get it nice and clean. To do that, of course, we're gonna have to take the balancer off, and we'll take the belt tensioner, get it out of the way. Probably just get the alternator off and out of here, which we got to do anyway to change the valve cover, but valve cover gasket. And we'll move the AC compressor. We'll just lay it over off to the side. Now, before we pull this OptiSpark off, we want to make sure we've got the engine kind of up on its timing. So the shaft for the OptiSpark is keyed, so it'll only go in one way, so we're okay that way. I'm still going to bring the crank pulley around, and of course you'll notice there's no timing marks anywhere, or brackets with timing marks on them. So what we'll do here is I'll cut over to my other camera, and I have it on my bore scope here, and you can see the timing mark there that's on the front of the balancer, that little yellow mark. Somebody's obviously been in this before, because that mark is usually not painted. Well, what we're going to do is we'll roll the crank around until that's pointing up at 12 o'clock, and that way we have a reference point of you know, where everything's got to go. And then we'll get the balancer off and get it out of the way. It's going to be a little bit of a smidge getting it out of there, because you got the rack and pinion right in the way, but I know for a fact it will come off of there. So, but once we get that and get this OptiSpark off out of here, you know, we can wipe it down and clean it. Well, that wasn't too bad. They don't give you a whole lot of room to work in here, in case you haven't noticed. And once we get these bolts off of here, just a little gentle persuasion will get that damper off of that flange. Now, when you're going to take this alternator nut off, not a lot of folks think about it, but you kind of want to give this thing some support, because if you just go yakking on this nut, you know, you could tear the stud out of the inside of the alternator, because these bolts are pretty doggone tight, or these nuts are anyway. There we go. That way you don't tear that stud out of the inside of the alternator, because she is on there tight. That off of there. Let's put that back on there so we don't lose it. I've already loosened this, so now I need to get me a Torx bit to fit that. I'm guessing that's a T50, yeah. Now, it's going to fight you coming out because of this little bushing right here. But if you rock it back and forth and push that bushing over, then she'll cooperate a little bit. hopefully. There you go. Now once you get it out of there, and you got a little more room to work with getting that out of there. And nice. Oh goodness. I'm gonna set this over on the bench. Yeah. Now, in order to get our plug wires out of here, they're gonna snake their way back around the power steering pump here. So that's why we're gonna need to get this AC compressor out of our way. We can just flip it over here. Now the AC compressor is gonna be 4 10mm bolts here. And then I'm gonna have to take this nut off of the exhaust manifold here. Get that off of there. See, those will stay there right nice. There's going to be 2 more 10mm here that are holding the spark plug wires on here. Little bracket. Get those fellas out of there. I might just loosen that pump up and get it out of the way. I'll give you a look via my handy dandy little GoPro here. What I discovered was the timing cover was leaking pretty badly at the water pump, where the water pump drive shaft comes out, and where the OptiSpark drive comes out, and the front main seal. So I know it sounds like this job's going, 18 kinds of sideways, but this is one of those things you might as well just do it once because you're already so far into it. So let me use the little GoPro here, and I'll show you. So this is the water pump drive shaft, and then there's a drive shaft that on the back of the OptiSpark that goes into here, and it's a spline shaft just like this one because of the this is a 94, so this has the first gen non-vented OptiSpark, and I'll touch on that a little bit more later. And since we're taking the whole front timing cover off, and you can see that the whole front of this motor is gooked up pretty good, what we're going to do, we're going to just go ahead and reseal all of it. And since the oil pan was weeping a little bit, we're just going to go ahead and change the oil pan gasket as well. Seeing as how you have to loosen the oil pan to get the timing cover out anyway. So, and I checked the timing chain while I was in here, and you can see that's got a fair bit of slack in there. So since we're this deep into it, we'll go ahead and just go ahead and put a new timing chain on there. And I know I mentioned a still shot of the water pump before, but I'll show that to you. And you can see where the weep hole is right there, and that's where, you know, there was fluid coming out of there, and you can tell it looks like there was also fluid coming out of here as well. So that was due. And then I'll take you over here to the bench, and you can see the this is the seal for the water pump drive shaft, and then this is a seal for the OptiSpark, and this is the front main seal. Now the hub where the front main seal goes looks like it might have a little bit of grooving on it, so I went ahead and got a repair sleeve that we'll put on there. Now about this hub, okay, on the LT1 motors, getting this hub off of here can be a challenge. Now I think it's worse in the F bodies, but on the Corvette it's a little bit easier, but still get the tool that the proper, I think it's a Kentmore tool. I'll put a listing of the tool down in the description, or I'll maybe put a postie up here in the video, because you can do it with a regular balancer puller like this, and that's how I got this one out, because it's been probably 20 years since I worked on an LT1, but it's a multi-step process. It's a royal pain when you try to use your traditional puller. You can do it, but you know, it's not fun. Now about the OptiSpark, you know, I mentioned this is a Gen 1, so it's non-vented, and you can see all the crud that got down into here, and you can see the surface rust everywhere. And then here's the, you know, the cover plate that goes over this, and it has a fair amount of surface rust from moisture, and that's because it's non-vented. So the problem is that the parts for these things are getting hard to come by, and you know, everybody's just going straight to LS now, and the 90% of the aftermarket OptiSpark distributors that you buy, people will complain because they are more often than not, they're dead coming right out of the box. And what I discovered after doing a good bit of research is that the factory OptiSpark, the original one that it came with, is pretty much the best one to have because of this module right here. This is this optical sensor, and you'll notice that it has a Mitsubishi logo on it, or Mitsubishi Electronics, and they say that that is the best sensor, and all your aftermarket ones have some cheap Chinese knockoff of that sensor, and they either don't work out of the box or they don't work, you know, very long. And you know, and I've also seen, to be fair, you know, some people who've bought a, you know, a aftermarket OptiSpark, and it's probably made in China, and they, you know, have gotten a few good years out of it. But what we're going to do is we are going to rebuild this. We have the technology, and and what we're going to do is we're basically going to make a Gen 2 vented OptiSpark out of it by using the 1995 cap and rotor, and you can the cap has an additional vacuum port on it, and then the OptiSpark here has 3 little holes in the bottom here, one of which you can attach a a tiny little vacuum fitting to it and run a hose out of it and essentially pull a vacuum on this, and then run the top vacuum port to to your, say, the back side of your air filter or something, so that it's always pulling clean air through the OptiSpark distributor. And so that's what we're going to do, and rather than take a chance on a Chinesian knockoff OptiSpark system. So other than that, from this point, we have a ton of parts cleaning to do, and so we will clean all that stuff up, and I'll be back when we show you how we modify the OptiSpark distributor.